My name is Thupten Wanchen. I am 45 years old and am one of the 130,000 Tibetans living in exile. I was 4 years old when my mother was murdered by soldiers during the Chinese repression in Tibet in 1958. A year later, my father, like thousands of other Tibetans, decided we had to escape from the country on a dangerous journey across the Himalayas, following in the footsteps of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. For 6 years, we begged our way around Nepal and northern India, until the Tibetan government in exile took me off the streets and placed me in a boarding school, where I remained until I was 16, when I decided to become a monk. In 1981, I came to Spain for the first time to work as an interpreter in a Buddhist center. It's been 19 years, and I'm still here, where I'm in charge of the House of Tibet, a foundation set up in 1994 by the Dalai Lama to spread and keep alive the culture and religion of my country. Here, I am free to express my ideas without fear of being tortured.
Since the Chinese army invaded Tibet in 1958, Lhasa has been transformed beyond all recognition. The small feudal city, fabulous and forbidden, has been turned into just one more chaotic metropolis of cement and glass, like all other large Chinese cities, determined not to miss out on progress. Especially in the past 20 years, the major investors from the east coast of China have turned their eyes to this remote region rich in mineral resources, where labor is cheap and the local government offers enormous tax and social incentives, such as the fact that Chinese couples can have 2 children instead of the 1, which is obligatory in the rest of the country. This economic boom, along with the advertising campaigns on national television stations to attract people here, have led to over 50,000 Chinese immigrating to Lhasa every year. And though few are given residence permits in order to keep down the official numbers, the reality is that half the population of the city is now of Chinese origin, making the Tibetans a minority in their own country. For soldiers too, Tibet has become a good place to be posted because here they can earn up to 4 times as much as in the rest of the country. Over 500,000 soldiers are stationed in this region, and in order to overcome the prejudice that Tibet is a frozen desert inhabited by savages, the government encourages prostitution, which has turned Lhasa into one of the largest brothels in Asia. The new settlements built by the state are not sufficient to absorb this growing immigration, and one of the solutions has been to expropriate the spacious Tibetan houses and divide them up into apartments, forcing the original owners to live alongside the Chinese, who in addition act as spies. Of the 16,000 shops registered in the capital, only 300 belong to Tibetans. Only the Chinese are allowed access to the best premises, forcing the Tibetans to sell their merchandise from street stalls. Dozens of cattle breeders and farmers arrive in the city every day, fleeing from the extreme poverty of rural areas. There are no schools or hospitals because there is virtually no Chinese population. All the state has done has been to expropriate land and cattle in order to be able to feed the enormous military population. The luckiest ones arrive with the little money they have managed to save, and which will allow them to earn a living selling extremely low-quality Chinese products. But the majority have no other option but to accept the hard work the Chinese refuse to do, and in conditions of semi-slavery, building roads, bridges, and electricity lines. Very few Tibetans are able to make a decent living in this totalitarian, oppressive society where human rights are simply trampled on. And so the streets of Lhasa are full of beggars and hustlers who survive on the few coins they receive from tourists. It is very noticeable that among these homeless, there are virtually no Chinese citizens. One of the most negative effects of this entire process is that the Tibetans are starting to doubt their own culture, at times even feeling ashamed of it. The old district of Barkor is the heart of the city, a Tibetan island in the middle of a Chinese ocean. The only place that has resisted the invasion of the modern world, and where it is still possible to feel the magic and the atmosphere of what Lhasa used to be, the forbidden, impregnable city, and in the past a remote, unreachable dream for many Westerners. At the doors of the tea houses, crowds gather to see the latest production from India. Some of them are seeing television for the first time. Meanwhile, the Kampa nomads finish their last game of billiards before they again return to the frozen expanses of the Tibetan plateau. In the workshops, the children carve in stone the Om Mani Padme Hum. Let us praise the jewel of the lotus, the most common of the mantras, the prayers to Buddha. Walking around the streets of Barkor, it's almost as if time had stood still. All around us are vendors and artisans, nomads, warriors and characters from legend, pilgrims who have come here from the four corners of the country to follow the most important pilgrimage route in the city. But there are virtually no monks. The majority have had to flee Tibet in search of freedom alongside the Dalai Lama. In the monastery of Sera, one of the most important in the city, before the invasion there lived there 5,500 monks, of which now just 200 remain. The monasteries are emptying, becoming almost lifeless wax museums. Amongst most precious possession is a photo of the Dalai Lama, which are completely forbidden here. If a soldier finds you, a foreigner, with one, you will spend a few days in jail and will then be forced to leave the country. But if the transgressor is Tibetan, the punishment will be much more severe. The monks suffer the harshest repression, and their peaceful demonstrations in favor of religious freedom are systematically quashed by the soldiers using excessive violence.